First of all, I want to thank the grace of heaven and the virtues of the masters, the mercy of the grand predecessor, transmitting masters, everyone here today, for this opportunity to continue talking about this topic. Okay, so last week we already talked about 3 of the 5, which was the moral integrity or virtues, precepts, or you can say moral discipline, and also the mindset. Okay, so then we still have 2 more to talk about. So this one, now, fulfilling the vows. Okay. And the vows, fulfilling the vows. I mean, we make vows, and of course, if we make vows, we should definitely, we have to fulfill them. Okay. So the importance of fulfilling vows. Vows are a requirement for attaining Buddhahood. There's an ancient saying, enter the path of Tao cultivation. Having initiative and resolve is the first thing. In the urgent matter of cultivation, making vows is first. With initiative and resolve, we can ferry sentient beings. By establishing vows, we can achieve on the path of Buddhahood. And also, of course, Buddha did say, right, there are 3 conditions for, ferrying people, basically, ferrying sentient beings. I think they said it in the negative way, but we'll use it in positive. I mean, we have to have affinity, to be able to be ferried. We also have to have the faith or the belief in the Dharma, and also we have to have be willing to make vows. And so when we receive the Tao blessing, one of the first things, well, during the ceremony, I mean, we have to make vows. I know we don't always explain that initially in the beginning, but we do. So we have to make the vows. And so, and then of course later on, those are the 10 great vows. But later on, like after attending a Dharma class, then we make other vows. But okay, so Holy Teacher said, if we do not broaden our heart and mind and establish a firm vow, then we will remain in the cycle of samsara, which is basically the birth, death, and rebirth, reincarnation, for countless kalpas, or eras, or eons. These are interminably long time. Even though we may cultivate, our efforts will be in vain. So it's important that when we're cultivating, we don't cultivate. We're thinking that, because I'm practicing, this cultivation, that I'm going to, excuse me, and I received the Tao, and I'm going to transcend this cycle of the samsara. But that's why the vows are there. Okay, so that to make sure that we do are successful in it. Without the vows, of course, if we make vows and we don't fulfill them, then it's the same as not really making vows either. So now faith. Okay, so just like those 3 conditions, right? So faith and vows, they also go together. You can't really have one. You can't have faith. Basically, without, if we have faith but no vows, then we're not going to accomplish anything. Okay, then that's like having an empty promise. Okay, but on the other hand, if we have vows, but if we make vows but we don't really have that faith, then it could lead to us not fulfilling our vows because we might give up. Okay, so the faith is kind of what keeps us going, but the vows too. I mean, they kind of go together, and help us. They help to keep us going on the right path, and not just in this lifetime, but however many lifetimes it takes for us to achieve Buddhahood. Okay, so vows can elevate our mental state and enter the true reality, or Determined-2. Holy teacher said, cultivators must make great vows in the Dharma ending age, that's now, okay, that's this time period that we're in, so that the mind can be elevated to be the same as the mind of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Otherwise, we are seeking to escape from this life and this world. How can we enter Determined-2? When we make a great vow and establish a great aspiration, then our mind resonates with the mind of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and one thought can transcend the cosmos and leave the path of life and death. Because of our sincere thought, all sentient beings are taken in by this resonating field of our calling. That's something to rejoice. Okay, so here's the first story here. We must fulfill the vows we make. Okay, so subtitle is Make a Vow and See the Buddha. All right. So there was this person, a cultivator. I mean, he vowed to cultivate a merciful heart like the Maitreya Buddha. Right. So we know that Maitreya Buddha, he's because he has depicted as having the big belly. I mean, he's very tolerant, right? Very forgiving, very magnanimous, all that. Okay. So he was determined to cultivate in the mountains for 3 years and hoped to see Maitreya. 3 years seemed to pass by in an instant, but Maitreya did not appear. This caused him to self-reflect, and he concluded that maybe he was not sincere enough. Okay. Therefore, he cultivated another 3 years, then another, and another, until he had cultivated in the mountains for 15 years. After all that time, the Buddha, Maitreya, still had not appeared. Finally, he sighed in disappointment and made his way down the mountain. Along the way, he encountered a sick cat lying by the trail. Now, out of his pity for the cat, he took a closer look and saw that the cat, it was in bad shape, had many festering wounds and worms on him. And so he gathered up some dried grass and spring water, and he, meticulously cleaned the wounds on the cat. Okay, so now, while the cat was under his compassionate care, he suddenly discovered that it was not the cat lying there, but in fact, it was Maitreya Buddha who appeared. So I guess it was, it was a transformation by the Maitreya Buddha. Maybe as a test. So he immediately made obeisance in front of the Buddha and asked, "Oh, merciful Maitreya Buddha, my karmic debts run deep. Why is it that after making the vow and with utmost sincerity, I did not see the Buddha for 15 years? Maitreya Buddha instructed him, "As soon as you made the vow and started to cultivate, the Buddha is already with you. Only because you did not fully practice what you had vowed, therefore you missed the opportunity all those years. Then, when your great compassion manifested, Maitreya Buddha naturally appeared." So, even though, this cultivator, he was sincere. I mean, after all, without that sincerity, and you can say faith, I guess, he wouldn't have stayed up on the mountain for 15 years, beyond what he had planned. So, but I mean, you can say that maybe at the end he kind of gave up, but, but this sincerity in the heart, in the mind, still, it has to be manifested. And so, and also his vow. Okay. So, he wanted to be as merciful as Maitreya Buddha, but how can you be merciful when you're just in the mountain by yourself? How do you show that? Who are you going to show that mercy to? Right, the compassion. And so, so basically, he had a nice idea, but he didn't really put that vow into action. Okay, so finally, when he came across that cat, or what he thought was the cat that was sick, and he took care of it, showing his compassion, then he finally expressed, or you might say maybe fulfilled, or a little bit, at least a little bit of his vow. Okay. And so that's when Maitreya appeared. So yeah, the point here is that we have to fulfill the vows. Okay. So that we make, and be sure to understand, what the vow means. Otherwise we might think, oh, it means all I have to do is this, I just go off to the mountain and meditate or do whatever. But maybe that's not really it. Okay. So, that we really need to express it, and it would be expressed or manifested towards other sentient beings. Okay. So in this case, obviously mercy, compassion, that needs to be expressed or manifested, in relation to other sentient beings. Okay. It's not just by ourselves. Okay. All right. Next story. The greater the vow, the greater the achievement. Okay. All right. So this is, in times past, there was a master who brought his disciple down the mountain. He ordered his disciple to carry their bags and followed behind the disciple. Okay. So at the time, the disciple was thinking, it is a pity that the masses of sentient beings do not know to cultivate. I want to ferry and transform them. So in his mind, he kind of, making a vow, basically. Okay. All right. Now, his master, he had achieved the level of an arhat. Okay. An arhat, he possesses, these transcendental powers. Okay. So he can kind of read other people's minds. So he can read his disciple's mind. He knows what his disciple is thinking. Therefore, he knew that his disciple had a great aspiration, and his disciple's achievement will one day surpass his own. So that's why the master let him carry the bags and walk in front of him. Okay, so let the disciple walk in front of him. Then, a little while later, the disciple then had another thought. Says, how can I ferry and transform sentient beings? I might as well just cultivate to become an arhat. Okay. So at that moment, the master ordered his disciple to walk behind him. Okay. And, still carrying the bags. So this repeated several times as the master alternately ordered his disciple to walk in front and then walking back, behind him. Okay. So then the disciple thought that, well, this master is acting kind of strange today. And then, that's what he's thinking. Then the master said, no, it's not me. It's your mind that is constantly changing. So, so basically, it is all in our mind, all in the span of one thought. So, that is very important to keep in mind. So that's why we have to be mindful, right? Be aware of our thoughts, of what's going on in our mind. Because each time we're having these thoughts, it could be the right thoughts, and that's good. But then if we change, we have these bad thoughts, the wrong thoughts, then it's like erasing everything else. And then, so that's why, like even vows, even if we don't make an official vow, like we do in the temple, we kind of burn this document, that basically is the official, making of the vow. Even if we don't do that, if we just kind of, have that thought in our mind, it's basically, it's as good as doing an official vow. Okay. So that's important. So we shouldn't be, wishy-washy and randomly, changing our mind back and forth. Okay. Because when we have that proper mindset, we make the vow, then there is strength, there is power in that, and the Buddhas will try to help us. But then as soon as we give up on that thought, then that's all gone. So that's very important. I mean, I've had personal experience too with this. You know, it's, even though, I mean, it wasn't really I don't know if you want to say it's a vow, but you know, I wanted to do something. That was just in my mind, and I ended up not doing it, and you know, then there was some consequence because of that. Okay, so yeah, so that definitely we cannot. You know, we have to be serious about it. Okay, we have to take it seriously. All right. Okay, establishing vows and aspirations. Those are holy teacher's words. Everybody knows that a chaotic world creates saints and sages. Right? It is a chaotic world today. Know that this is the time of testing and selecting saints and sages. Holy teacher is waiting for his disciples. If disciples do not establish an aspiration now, then when? Holy teacher is waiting for highly talented people. If disciples are not the candidates, then who? Hoping the disciples put in the effort. Do not establish a great aspiration every day, just establishing a long-lasting aspiration. Right? So, yeah, it's not the quantity of aspirations or goals or whatever, vows even. You can say it's the duration. Okay, you can say quality and also the duration of the vow, that we maintain it to the end. Okay, so it's not like, oh, today I make this vow and then next month I decide, no, that's no good, I'll make a different vow. If we're constantly changing our vows, our goals, our aspirations, then we're never going to achieve anything. Okay, so as long as we make the vow, then we need to, or an aspiration, have an aspiration, then we should hold on to keep it and until the end, okay, and try to fulfill it to the end. All right, do not toss aside working towards the aspiration because we do not have time and just live life blindly without a goal. Okay, so again, this aspiration is like a goal. You can say it's like a goal or a compass to guide us to a destination. Okay. Without it, we're kind of blindly going about life. Make an effort and strive forward while we still have this body or this life. Okay. Because once we do not have this body, we cannot do anything, even if we wanted to, and it will be too late for regrets. Time is urgent. Do not become lost in the world. We must diligently fulfill our vows. So again, time, I know, life today, it's a busy world. We have busy lives. People have busy lives. But we have to make some time to fulfill our vows. Okay. Yeah. And especially, since we know about karma and the effects of karma, right? We just see too many examples of people, Daokin, who, they receive the Dao, but they're not, they may come to temple, but other than that, they're not really doing anything. Okay, so, and then they get sick, something happens, they get cancer, and they're wondering why. And so, holy teacher or the Buddhas don't have to tell us that, unless you start cultivating and performing merits, establishing your virtues, then, you're going to get this, you're going to get sick, you're not going to, you're going to die before you can do anything. They talk about that in general terms, but they're not going to say specifically to any one person, say, hey, you have a very bad karma, you better start doing something. We just have to know that. Based on the principles, we don't know what kind of karma we have. So the best course of action is to do our best it's like an insurance policy, to accumulate merits, perform merits, and establish our virtues. And that's the best insurance policy we have. Okay. So, all right. So everyone can be a saint or sage, and everyone can be a Buddha. It depends on whether people have the aspiration. We can cultivate whether or we are a layperson or a monk. Obviously today, we are all lay people, just regular people. We don't have to become like a monk. An aspirant should view the wife as a friend and children as companions at home. Do not be contaminated by worldly affairs. Do not be drawn in by human affection. Value our true nature, respect morality and virtues, and use the dharma of the world to cultivate and transcend the world. Without aspiration, we cannot see through the world. We value the false and dismiss the truth, and do not know the greater matter of life and death. Okay. So, we tend to get caught up in, especially our relationships with people, family, friends, whoever. There's human affection that sometimes it's hard to. We are kind of bound by that, and it's hard to let go when we need to let go. You're saying here that we also, we have to make use of, because we are here in this world, and this is really the only place that we can cultivate in this world, that we have to make use of this, you can say, this false reality, this false environment, the false forms, to cultivate what is actually true, which is our true nature, our Buddha nature. Okay. So we shouldn't forget that. I mean, if we forget what we're cultivating for, then, we're still going to be stuck here because we're stuck on the forms. We're attached to the forms. So ultimately we have to let go. We have to make use of the forms. They're like tools, just like the body, is a tool, or money is a tool. These dharma is a tool. Okay. So these things are tools to help us achieve the ultimate goal. But we have to let go of these, because these are all forms and they're all temporary anyways, that we have to let go of them in the end and don't become attached to them. So, because humans are creatures of habit, we tend to become, once we become attached to them, if we become attached to them now, if we are still attached to them now, it'll be hard to let go in the end when we have to leave this world. Okay. So it's the best thing to do is try to break off these attachments now. And then, cultivation, I would say, would become easier. And definitely at the end, when we have no attachments, it is easier for us to leave this world, okay, and to transcend. Okay. All right. So let's see. Okay. Oh, all right. So, the power of vows, right? So, talk about some of these bodhisattvas. The achievement of all great bodhisattvas, they come from the power of vows. For example, Avalokitesvara or Guanyin Bodhisattva, made 12 great vows. The most well-known of those vows is that, he or she, won't become a Buddha, until all sentient beings are ferried. So, obviously the world is still full of sentient beings. And yet now she's a Buddha. Okay. So, but actually, okay. So, this is from our human point of view. We say, oh, it's not yet a Buddha, whatever. Actually they were already Buddhas. Okay. So, and, I would think that for all of these, bodhisattvas, these are all mahasattvas, which are great bodhisattvas. Okay, so they're like at the highest levels of bodhisattva. But they are, because, like Avalokitesvara or Guanyin, we now know her as with the title of, Nanhaikufu, which is you can say the South Seas ancient Buddha. Okay, so ancient Buddha. And just like Siddhagarbha, the second one, is now known as the ancient Buddha. Okay, Siddhagarbha, ancient Buddha. Okay, so that kind of indicates that they've been Buddha for knows how many kalpas before. Okay. But actually, being a bodhisattva, we see them as a bodhisattva. But actually, this is actually just one of their nirmanakayas, which is one of their transformation bodies. Okay. So Buddhas can have infinite transformations. And so this happens to be one of them. So they were Buddhas and they transformed in this world as a bodhisattva to very sentient beings. Okay. All right. So, now, but, so saying that, it's not going to become a Buddha until all sentient beings are fairy. Now, obviously, that hasn't happened yet. And who knows how many kalpas it will take for that to happen, if ever. Okay. But having that vow means that he'll always, no matter how many cycles of life and death, or how many cycles of the world or the cosmos, the Buddha will, or the, Avalokitesvara will be here to try to save sentient beings. Okay. And because of this great power of this great vow, is now, has that title of a Buddha. Okay. So, but anyways, yeah, they're already Buddhas. So Siddhagarbha has 72 great vows, the most well known of which is that he won't be considered a Buddha until all the souls in the hell or in the underworld are buried as well. Okay, so, yeah, and we know the underworld is still full of souls and spirits. Okay, so that hasn't happened, but yet he's a Buddha. Okay, so again, it just shows that they are willing to basically just do this forever for the sake of sentient beings. Okay, Manjushri Bodhisattva. I couldn't find his 141 great vows, but however many vows he made, one of the vows he made is he's not a Buddha until all beings become Buddhas. Okay, so again, this is one a great vow too. Obviously, in fact, Manjushri was already a Buddha. Okay, so he as a bodhisattva, he's actually a teacher of Buddhas. Okay, so and so a lot of his vows have to do with talk about that. So yeah, and there were like many Buddhas that came about from his teachings or his guidance. Okay, and then Samantabhadra Bodhisattva had 10 great vows. Basically, and this one is probably more commonly known. And actually, his 10 vows, they sound kind of more down to earth, if you will, not so like so grand as the other vows. For example, it says to pay homage to and respect all Buddhas, to praise the thus come one Tathagata. Okay, so basically the Buddha. To make abundant offerings, to give generously. Okay, to repent misdeeds and evil karmas, to rejoice in others' merits and virtues, to request the Buddhas to continue teaching, to request the Buddhas to remain in the world, to follow the teachings of the Buddhas at all times, to accommodate and benefit all living beings, to transfer all merits and virtues to benefit all beings. Okay, so these are, I say they're more down to earth because they're more like the type of vows that we might make, that are more suitable for us mortals, human beings. Okay, so, and then, Maitreya Buddha has also 12 great vows, and, one of his great vows is to establish a paradise or a world of harmony on earth, that's why he's now responsible for this time that we're in, this white era, and, at some point in the future, he will preside over this world that is what we call the world of harmony, which is what, Confucius called it. So and that will happen because of people who are cultivating the Tao. Okay. All right. So with great vows come great achievements. As in these, we can see with these bodhisattvas. In cultivation, we must make great vows like Avalokitesvara's great vow to ferry all sentient beings in the world. Although all sentient beings have yet to be ferried, right, Guanyin Bodhisattva's achievement has resulted in the title of Nanhai Ancient Buddha. The same with Siddhigarbha Bodhisattva's great vow. Although there are countless souls in the underworld, his achievement has resulted in the title of Siddhigarbha Ancient Buddha. Right. So again, it's the power of these vows. Okay, and of course, knowing that they will never give up. They will never. They will again. They're no matter to the end of time. Basically, they will keep trying to fulfill these vows. Okay. All right. Okay, so basically, all the Bodhisattva's vows are kind of, you can say they're based on these 4 immeasurable minds and the 4 great vows. Okay, so the 4 immeasurable minds: loving kindness, or benevolence, compassion, mercy or pity, empathetic joy, right? Or we say rejoicing in others' welfares, and equanimity. So, so if you look at all the vows, they fall into these 4. If you might say 4 have 4 qualities to them. Okay, and then also there's like the 4 basic, or you can say very broad vows. Okay, or general vows. They also fall under these 4 general categories. Basically, saving all the innumerable sentient beings. Okay, so obviously we saw that. Extinguish all the inexhaustible afflictions. So trying to save sentient beings, even though it's maybe not ferrying them, but trying to save them from disasters, things like that. Master all the immeasurable dharmas. Okay, so that's more kind of a personal thing for themselves, I guess. And achieve the unsurpassable supreme perfect enlightenment of Buddhahood. Okay, so ultimately, they actually, all the bodhisattvas, they are enlightened, but that ultimate level of enlightenment, that supreme perfect enlightenment of Buddhahood, that's the highest level. But like I said, these are bodhisattvas, but I would say they are bodhisattvas in name only, or in this world, in this cycle that we know them as bodhisattvas, but they are actually the transformations of Buddhas. Okay, so all right. Now, although a vow may be great, right? When we establish a vow, we must fulfill the vow. In the process of fulfilling the vow, we will have the willpower, which is gives us that power of the vow. Only then we will have the driving force or motivation, okay, to be able to transcend life and death and attain Buddhahood. Therefore, in cultivation, as long as we can make and fulfill vows, then attaining sainthood or Buddhahood should not be difficult. Okay, so but it's really a matter of execution, I guess, making it happen, right? Fulfilling the vows. Okay, so now making the vows, it can be easy, or it can be difficult. If we have fear, it's usually people have the fear of thinking that they're not capable of fulfilling the vow, and so they're afraid to make the vow. But we have to realize that it is kind of an unknown, but we have to have that will, that determination. That will and determination can overcome many obstacles. Okay, and so even the obstacle of not knowing whether we can do it. In fact, there is a lot that we can do if we have put our mind to it. Right, we have the will, the resolve, the determination to do it. We'd be surprised at actually what we can do. Okay, so we shouldn't be too afraid of that. Okay, so now we're talking about forbearance, which is tempering the human nature. Earlier, the one, let's see, okay, yeah, all right. So here, start off with the story. Falling short of success. Okay, so there's the legendary story of 杜之村. Okay, so in the Tang Dynasty, in order to repay a favor, basically, I don't know, he had gotten some financial assistance from someone before. Okay, so he made an agreement with an elder Taoist, Lao Jing, to sit in front of the elixir stove without saying a word and wait until dawn so as to make elixirs. I mean, this is kind of like the Taoist alchemy back then. That's what they did a lot of this stuff, or kind of like that internal alchemy as part of their cultivation. All right, sitting in front of the stove, Zicun experienced the suffering of wild animals, thunder and lightning, flooding, and hell, but never spoke a word. King Yama of the underworld, right, punished him to be reborn as a woman, but he remained silent. Thus, he was viewed as a mute woman and was teased. Unexpectedly, he was married by a scholar named Lu Gui and gave birth to a cute son. Zicun loved the son very much. Now, this is obvious. This is all happening in his mind. Okay, so obviously they're sitting there, you can say, in meditation. He and the Taoist, I guess, the priest or monk, Lao Jing, and they're in meditation. And I guess he went into some kind of either a dream or something, and this is what's happening in his mind. Okay, so faced with his mute wife, so basically he, I don't know, so in that dream or whatever, he happens to be reborn as a woman, and so he is this person's wife, but he's mute. Okay, well, obviously he's not talking, right? Because that was what they agreed to do, right, when they sat down to meditate. All right, so one day, the husband turned from love to hate. He held up the 2-year-old son and said, "As a man despised by his wife, what's the use of having a child?" Then he held the child's feet and he kind of swung the child against the stone. Okay, so cracking smashing the boy's head on the stone. And so when Zicun saw that, love arises from the heart, right? And he forgot his agreement with the Taoist, and he burst out, unconsciously. Of course, but this is all in his mind. Says, "Hey, as a result, the illusion suddenly disappeared, and the elixir stove cracked open. The elixir that was about to be completed fell short because of this." He then was sent back to the mundane world by the elder Taoist. Okay, so basically, this is talking about, so we have to temper our human nature. Our human nature is composed of, like emotions, our sentiments, right? Things like that. And so in this case, it was a failure on his part, you can say, of, he had an attachment to human sentiment, okay, or human, affection. That he was attached to, obviously his family. I mean, his son. And so, basically, and that's what caused him to utter a word, when he was supposed to remain silent. Okay. So now this is very difficult, for us as humans. We think, well, this is human nature. This is how we are. It would be unusual for us not to have any emotion, not have any sentiment at all. But it's not to say that we cannot have those qualities or those characteristics. But we cannot be too attached to them either. Okay. You might, yeah. So this section is talking about forbearance, right? So, forbearance, there's a lot of, you can say this is where we experience the trials the tests and trials. And this is really where we either succeed or fail as a cultivator. If we do not have the forbearance, okay, we cannot persevere, we cannot tolerate, we cannot get through these tests, then we fail. And you know, no matter all the other the other four areas of cultivation, even if we do those well, but we fail in forbearance, then, you know, it's kind of all for naught. So ultimately, this is something that we need to do, is to temper this human nature, okay? And so, yeah, it is difficult. I mean, like, I know, you know, we all have the experience of losing a loved one. You know, I mean, we all lose a parent, you know, or both parents, eventually. And, you know, that can hit us very hard. That, you know, there's that sentiment there that it's hard to let go of. But, we do have to let it go. I mean, it's okay to grieve. But, you know, we can't grieve forever. We have to, you know, after a certain amount of time, we have to move on. Okay. So that's something, you know, this human sentiment, that, I think is kind of like it can be a weakness. I mean, it is our, you know, for most people, it is their weakness, basically, in cultivation. Okay. All right. Okay. So the next is, there are 10 short stories of these 10 trials of forbearance. Okay. So these are, relating to, Li Dongbing, who is, sometimes we refer to him as, well, he's one of the 8 immortals, okay, if, you know, the Chinese, I guess, mythology, but they're real, actually. It's not a myth. And so the 8 immortals, you know, they're enlightened beings. They were real people, and they've cultivated, and you know, they were enlightened. And so they achieved the status of immortality. And basically, you know, they're like a bodhisattva or you know, something like that. Now, okay, so, and he's also, as the title, he's also one of the guardians of the law, of the Dharma. Okay. One of the 4. Okay, so, in the first trial, when Immortal Ri came back from traveling afar, he discovered that all his family members had died of illness. Okay, so Immortal Li had no remorse, but he had the tools needed for the burial. So in that moment, the dead were, you know, suddenly awoke, became awake, and they were actually fine. Immortal Ri remained unperturbed and calm by the rise of his dead family. Okay, so imagine, you know, you go home and you see your family members, they're all on the floor, dead, and then suddenly they wake up. Okay, so is this because he has no human affection? No, it's because Immortal Ri has attained the great Tao and views life and death as nothing but a dream. Life and death is fate, right? A great man regards death as returning to the One, and relatives depart the world and take their own path. It is the end of their destiny. So how can one be blamed for doing one's best to bury them properly? Yeah, so this is, again, not having that sentiment, that attachment to the human sentimentality, of his family. So realizing that once they're dead, I mean, once, you know, because everyone, that's everyone's fate, you know, they're going to die sooner or later. When they die, you know, that's it. There's, you know, that's just the way it is. Okay. So, all right. And we can't change that. Okay. So in the second trial, Immortal Ri, he sold goods in the market. Okay. So after the price was agreed, with the buyer, okay, so I guess the buyer was haggling with the price, the buyer suddenly changed his mind and was only willing to pay half of the agreed price. But Immortal Li, he still sold the goods to him without any dispute. So, now, so you can say maybe, the buyer kind of took advantage. But Immortal Li's heart, he was not swayed by having any gain or loss. Okay, so this is so ordinary humans, right? People, when we encountered a situation, we would argue, right? We would argue until maybe our face and ears turned red, right? And maybe, not willing to give up, even so far as maybe even killing someone. Okay, so that's pretty serious. And, I think every now and then in the news you hear something like that. The purpose of this trial is to persuade people not to be swayed by gains and losses, but to let go. Right? Lending and borrowing money in the business world often gives rise to a problem of mistrust and credibility. Of course, the principle is not to lend the money randomly. Once there is a dispute, we should look at it more lightly. Right? Do not take it to heart when suffering from a loss. It is not worth it if it adversely affects our health or we commit suicide even. Right? So, people, everyone has, you can say, a different level, degree of tolerance or whatever to the amount of loss. Some people may say, oh, it's no big deal. It's just, if it's $10, they're willing to lose $10 or whatever. But, the higher the amount, the harder it becomes to let it go. Okay. So, this is something where we have to learn to let go. Okay. So, it's not to say that we should just let people, take advantage of us, but sometimes it does happen. I remember one time we were at it was at the old temple. I don't know, we had some kind of class, I guess, and then someone came up to it was outside, came and was asking, the guy came and he was a scam artist basically, but he was saying, he's telling his story that he lost his wallet, whatever, he needed bus money, and then me, and then there's one other person there, and basically, I'm thinking, well, I know this guy's this is a fake, okay, so. But the other person said, I asked, do you want to give him any money? And so, so the other person, she gave some money to him. So this is something, we will encounter this a lot. Now, if we know for sure, maybe it's not wrong to give them money, and I would say it's not necessarily wrong to refuse as well. So this is just something, but don't refuse because it's we think we're losing something. Okay, so this gain and loss that's very difficult. A lot, especially like people who do like trading, right, in the financial markets or whatever. Loss, of course, loss is part of the game, so to speak. There will be losses. No one, wins forever, keeps winning, or even gambling, like in gambling. But, we shouldn't take it too hard. And then also, obviously, we need to know to stop and not keep losing, for example. Okay. So, all right. The third trial, Immortal Li went out on a New Year's day, and he met a beggar leaning on his door and asking for alms. Or he's begging for something. So Immortal Li gave him some money and goods. However, the beggar was not tired of asking for more and even cursed at him. Okay, so Immortal Li just smiled and thanked him repeatedly. Okay, so this is a trial of basically, you can say, charity, a heart of endurance and tolerance. Okay, so we give charity and still receive a scolding, and we just cannot bear it. Then our moral conduct is not even close to that of Immortal Li, and we have failed in this subject. Okay, so yeah, I mean, you think that, oh, we do a good deed and yet we are, scolded or, you know, the person is ungrateful. That, you know, that can sometimes, if we, I guess we don't have, we haven't cultivated very well, then, you know, maybe next time we'll be more reluctant to actually to give. Okay. Because, you know, we kind of remember these experiences and we don't like these negative, these, experiences. So, so this is, so that's one that, is also can be kind of, it kind of goes against, maybe it kind of goes against the way that we think we are, you know, what we think this human nature is. So that's why actually cultivation is kind of going the opposite. It's kind of like going the opposite of going upstream, right? Going the opposite, flowing in the other direction as what human nature would go in. Okay, so we need to go in the direction of our Buddha nature, follow our Buddha nature, not the human nature. Okay, so all right. And so in the fourth trial, Immortal Li, he was herding goats on a mountain when he encountered a hungry tiger that ran for the goats. But Immortal Li used his own body to block the tiger, and eventually the tiger kind of gave up and left. So this is a trial of sacrifice. Whether we have that spirit of sacrifice, you know, willing to sacrifice ourselves for others. To save the goats by sacrificing our lives is probably not something that most people could do. We should not kill, but rather save the lives of sentient beings. A vegan cultivator can even move the hungry tiger not to eat meat. Okay, so I hope we don't have to encounter this kind of test, but certainly, you know, if you know, it might be a somewhat different situation where, you know, someone, if a bunch of people might be killed, you know, we can do something about it. You know, that's a question we can ask ourselves when we do it. Okay, even sacrificing our lives to save the others, right? And that's also a tough one because everyone wants to live. But you know, so that's something that, you know, but we have to, you know, and the reason why maybe people want to live is, you know, because there are all sorts of attachments, not just to, you know, their life itself, but also because of the sentimentality and all these other things, attachments that we have that kind of prevent us from, making that decision to be able to sacrifice ourselves. Okay. All right. So the fifth trial, Immortal Li, he lived in a grass hut in the mountains and read books. Once there was a beautiful woman who came by, and she said she was lost and couldn't find her way home. So she took this opportunity to take a short rest, and not long after, tried every which way to seduce Immortal Li with her beauty. Okay. But Immortal Li was not moved. Okay. So we must be able to restrain ourselves, right, in the face of enticements or, enticements. Okay. So we must have that concentration, you know, that will, that ability to concentrate. Most people are not able to climb out of the pit of sensual desires. So how can we even think of climbing up to heaven? That's not likely. Yeah, maybe you know, this is probably a bigger problem for men, for the males, than the women perhaps. Although, you know, it affects both, but it's probably, you know, men tends to have that stronger sensual or sexual desire than women, so it becomes difficult. But yeah, so that's something that also that's also a test, actually. I mean, you know, we can, it depends, but everyone, of course, is different, and everyone's, what everyone needs, to be tested, on, could be different too, depending on what our weaknesses are, the areas that we need to, improve, okay, or overcome. Okay. So in the sixth trial, Immortal Lee was, he was out for a day, and then when he returned, he found that his belongings were stolen. Now, Immortal Lee, he was not angry, suddenly, but, okay. And then so as he's kind of rummaging around, he saw that there were 10 pieces of gold under, I don't know, a tool or something. And, seeing those 10 pieces of gold, he quickly buried them, and he didn't keep them. So basically the gold was, from whoever robbed him, kind of, I guess they dropped it or something. And it wasn't his. Okay. So, now, so when greed arises, so does the devil. Okay. So greed for wealth and pleasures is a common problem. Patriarch Lee, or Immortal Lee, did not keep the gold, but was not sad or pessimistic. He had a heart of joy without greed, thinking that because he did not earn it himself, he did not keep it. Common people are greedy for even small advantages, but they should be ashamed of themselves. Because cultivators are not greedy and are not tempted by wealth and pleasures, they can be with Buddhas. Okay, so greed, remember that's one of the 3 poisons, that we definitely have to get rid of greed. Any little inkling of greed. Okay, so we have to, so what is not ours, what we did not earn, we did not deserve, we should not take. Okay, that should be the motto, right? Yeah, because if we cannot let go of greed, then we can't transcend life and death. Okay, it's that simple. Okay, so in the 7th trial, Immortal Lee met a merchant selling bronzeware. Okay, so he bought one a piece and returned home. When he took a closer look, he found that it was actually made of gold. So Immortal Lee, he went back and returned it to the merchant. Okay, so once again, this is a test for greed. Purchasing a brass item or a bronze item and having it turn out to be gold, most people would be ecstatic, right? They would thank heaven and earth, thank the foolish seller. There would be, why return it? So we must remember not to take anything that we did not earn or that was ill-gotten. Okay. Yeah, I mean, most people, or I don't know, it's hard to say, but I'm sure many people are tempted. Okay, so they'll keep it and say, "Wow, they got they got more than they bargained for." Okay, but you do hear the stories of people who they found like a bag full of money, and they turned it into the police, or they, whatever. They didn't keep it for themselves. So they have that virtue. They have that, right? And talking about this gold actually reminds me of another story. It's not about greed, but, about his, moral integrity in general. Okay. So again, this is talking about Immortal Lee. Basically, now Immortal Lee, his teacher was Immortal Zhongli Chen. Okay, so he's another one of the 8 immortals. He's the founder, you can say, of the 8 immortals. And so, Immortal Zhongli Chen, he gave a heavy sack to carry, for Immortal Lee to carry with him wherever he went. So one day, his teacher asked him, do you know what's in that sack that you've been carrying for the past 3 years? Immortal Lee says, yeah, I know that the sack is filled with stones. His teacher said, do you know that these stones can be turned into gold? Since you have shown such sincerity, humility, and have never complained, I can teach you how to turn these stones into gold if you wish. Then Immortal Lee asked, well, when these stones are transformed into gold, will they be identical to real gold? His teacher said, no, the gold that has been transformed from stones or any other object lasts for only 500 years. After that, they will return to their original form. Immortal Lee responded, in that case, I do not wish to learn this technique. If the gold is not permanent, then what I do now will have harmful effects 500 years from now. I would rather be ignorant of the technique, which may potentially harm people. So this, so he has great moral integrity. He won't take advantage and use this technique to just be able to transform things into gold and use it because it'll have some consequences later on for people. Even it's not going to affect him directly, but other people, and so he doesn't want that. So this is also why Immortal Li is also known as the pure Yang immortal. So he's basically pure good, pure goodness. Okay, pure. He's pure of heart. Okay. Now, in the 8th trial, there was a crazy Taoist selling medicine on the streets, claiming that taking the medicine will kill you, but then you will attain immortality in the next life. Okay. Now, Immortal Li, he bought it, and the Tao said, quickly prepare for your funeral. Immortal Li, he was not afraid to take the medicine, and he proved that it was actually not harmful. Okay, so could it be that Immortal Li was mesmerized and not afraid of death? No, actually, Immortal Li, he had received the Tao and viewed death as the same as life. But of course, he also knew that the Tao's words were, he was crazy. By taking the medicine, he proved to everyone that there was nothing to fear. Furthermore, it's said that when the human heart dies, the Tao heart is born or lives, right? The one who is dead has the 3 poisons, the greed, anger, delusion, and therefore is evil. So the human heart, in this case, if it has the 3 poisons, then it is an evil heart. And also, of course, if it's selfish and all that, then so the saying, that once that dies, that's gotten rid of, then the Tao heart, the true heart, the pure heart, it lives, and it's born and it lives, and it can reveal itself. Okay, so so you can say that that's also going against that human nature. I don't want to say human nature necessarily, but this human heart and mind. Okay, so, all right. Okay. It's moving right along here. In the 9th trial, one day the river flooded, and Immortal Li, along with other villagers, were caught in this situation. And the wind was creating massive waves. The villagers were screaming in fear, whereas Immortal Li sat motionless. This is a test to see if we have the power of concentration, not to panic. Right? Tao cultivators must have a calm heart and mind and firm faith or belief. Right? Or faith, really. When meeting with turbulence, our heart and mind must be unmoved. With a little patience and tolerance, then we can be unharmed. Okay, otherwise, one panicked and hasty move, and the situation can become even more dangerous or perilous, and we can be swept away. Right? So definitely, we have to be very calm, composed, be aware, have that presence of mind. Okay, presence of mind. So we don't lose ourselves in the situation. We don't lose ourselves to emotions. Okay, so that's what presence of mind is to always be in control, and therefore we are calm, we are steady, and we don't panic. Okay, that's very important too. In the 10th trial, Immortal Li was sitting alone in a room, and suddenly he saw countless strange shapes and ghosts. Some wanted to attack him, while others wanted to kill him. Yet Immortal Li was fearless. Then a shout rang out, and the ghost disappeared. A person clapped his hands and laughed. It was his teacher, Immortal Zong Liquan. Okay, so in this test, right, is just demonstrating this. There's a saying that if we do nothing bad or against our conscience, then we have no fear of ghosts knocking on our door. Immortal Li's heart and mind was upright and proper, without any bit of evil. Seeing ghosts intrude, and if we think that maybe there's we were fearful because perhaps we feel that maybe we did something wrong or whatever, then we're asking for trouble. Okay, so we have no thoughts, have great upright and positive energy, and then we are not afraid of ghosts. If we are ashamed or terrified, then we do not have enough moral virtue and merits. Right? We should work harder and return our karmic debts. Then the ghosts will be our friends, and Buddhas will accompany us no matter where we are. Okay, so fear, that's also a human emotion. fear is, and we say it's pretty natural. But ultimately, once we know, so actually, even though, we do know a lot of things, right? We know all the principles, we know, how things are or they should be, but sometimes, when we're encountering a situation, we still have that fear despite what we know. So there's a gap between what we know and how we should act, and how so that's that gap. We have to close that gap, get rid of that gap, again, we have to practice, we have to put in the effort to cultivate. Okay. Okay. So, all right. So the next, the next story. Okay. So the next story is about, how Taiku. Okay. So he digs 72 caves. So he is one of the seven what's known as the seven Taoist masters. There's a book. I guess it's a novel. I mean, that was written. It's unclear who wrote it, but it's about these seven Taoist, these cultivators. So eventually they're considered masters. I mean, they become enlightened and they become immortals too. Okay, so. But this is one of the story about one of them. Okay, Hao Taigu. Okay, so digging 72 caves. All right, so he basically he meditates in his cave, right? Okay, so one day he was meditating at the base of this. There's a stone bridge. Okay, nobody noticed him there at first, and then later on, some people noticed that he was there. They say, "Oh, there's the sage meditating under the bridge." People started bringing him food and all that. Okay, so one day, and it became kind of like, and then children were there too, playing around and whatnot. And so, but one day, they kind of, it was quiet and no one was there. No one came to bother him. And he came out to kind of enjoy the peace and quiet in the surroundings. Then he noticed that there was another man under the bridge who was polishing a stone, right? The man, he would polish a stone, he would look at it for a while, and then he'd go back to polishing, and eventually, he would kind of polish it until it was so thin that it broke, okay? And then when that happens, then he'd pick up another stone, he would start polishing that, and the process would continue, go over and over. So Hao Taigu, he saw that, and he says, this guy's kind of weird, and what's he trying to do? So he asked, what are you trying to accomplish with polishing the stones? Maybe I can help. And the man said, well, I'm trying to make a mirror by polishing the stone. Hao Taigu said, mirrors are made by polishing bronze, not stones. If you keep polishing the stones, you'll never get what you want. The man laughed and said, you are telling me that if I stubbornly sit here and polish my stones, I will never make a mirror? What about you? Do you think that by sitting stubbornly in the cave, you can become an immortal? So Hao Taigu then realized that the man was making a point and trying to teach him through his actions. But before he could ask the man for instructions, the man suddenly disappeared. He thought to himself, wow, the sage was right. To stubbornly sit and meditate all the time is what's called dead sitting. Okay, so it doesn't accomplish anything, right? So, but actually, so that's kind of the prelude to this story here. So eventually, so he left that area and he decided to go off to the mountains. So he went to the mountains and, he saw this one mountain, Huasan, and he saw, wow, it had a nice straight rock face. Okay. And so he started digging his first, he wanted to dig a cave there to meditate as well. All right. So I'm not sure that he actually learned his lesson, but, as soon as he dug that first little cave, just enough for him to sit in, there was another, Taoist monk that appeared and said, can I use this cave for, to meditate? And before, he could reply, that Taoist monk, just sat in there, and then started meditating. Basically took over his cave. Now, so, Hao Taigu, he was kind and generous person, so he kind of forfeited the cave to that other monk. So he picked up his belongings and found another spot to dig a cave. And as soon as he, finished digging that second one, another person shows up and says, "Hey, can you spare me your cave so I can meditate in peace? I'm old and do not have much time." So Hao Taigu says, "All right, go ahead. You can have the cave. May you achieve enlightenment soon." Okay. And so basically over the next 10 years, he's digging these caves, and every time he finished the cave, someone would appear and take his cave. So he dug 72 caves in all. In the end, actually, he achieved enlightenment, basically soon, not too long after that. But, so this is, forbearance, right? So how many of us would, be willing to give up so much? So this is, you can say, is relinquishment. I mean, he's able to give up, and he's tolerating, all this, that, and you might say that all these people are taking advantage of him, right? And yet, he persisted, he persevered, and it didn't affect him. Okay. So that's, this is true, this is forbearance. Okay. So, that's something that we, need to work on, right? Okay. So basically he, instead of, right, because he was stuck on meditation. So instead of meditating all those years, right, Hao Taigu ended up inadvertently performing good deeds by digging these caves, for others to use. Such forbearance is without getting, upset or angry. He finally completed tempering his human nature, and he became immortal. Okay. All right. Okay. So another, story from the Seven Taoist Masters. There's another one of the Seven Taoist Masters, Liu Changsen. Okay, so he tempered a demon of sexual desire in a brothel. Okay, brothel is like, it's well, that's where where you have prostitutes, basically. Okay, so so basically he was one of the masters who originally he had this. I guess he couldn't control his, sexual desires. And so, and he had this one dream where he went up to the celestial heavens, and I guess they have like, he went to the court of, I don't know, the Jade Emperor or whatever, the Jade Empress, and, within the palace, there were, beautiful, I don't know, the court ladies, I guess. I don't know. They would be, of course, those are celestial beings. Now he kind of looked at them from the corner of his eyes. And, because they were beautiful. And the empress was angry and told him to return to the earthly world to dissolve his remaining desires. Okay. So when he returned, we're going to get back. Another one of the Seven Taoist Masters, one of his brothers, told him the story of a sage who initially indulged himself in sexual desires almost until the point of death before realizing the emptiness of it all. So this kind of inspired him to basically fight fire with fire, or fight desire with desire, confronting his desires head on by tempering his desires in a brothel. Okay, so this is kind of an unusual tactic, but so he did that. And, basically, his other brothers in, cultivation, okay, among the Seven Taoist, masters, right? They were saying, why don't you just, cultivate the attitude that, see no evil and hear no evil, basically that, it forms, they aren't real, or, say, just say, forget yourself and forget others. There's no subject-object duality, and then all desires would dissolve. Okay. But, Liu Changsen says, brothers, you offer good advice, but the cultivation that you speak of are only appropriate for those who have a strong foundation. I am afraid I would not be able to change my attitude by will alone. I need to expose myself to the activities in the brothel so that I can see through the illusions of sexual attraction and desire. So he subjected himself to that. He went to a brothel and he kind of lived there for actually over a year. And in the process, I mean, you know, he, basically, you know, he kind of treated the madams in there, in the brothel as, you know, as friends. And he treated them with respect, not as objects of, you know, sexual desire or anything like that. And he was able to kind of see through, and basically, you know, not, you know, basically see them as kind of, it's like they're just empty forms. So he emptied his heart and mind, right, pretending to be blind and deaf with nothing to obtain, looking but not seeing their beauty, listening but not hearing their seductive voices, right? Due to his innocent and pure intentions, you know, appears as, you know, from an outsider, they would say, it looks like they're just like children playing together, you know. For more than a year in a brothel, he was not aroused by the temptations of living with such beautiful women. By the time he left, his sexual desires were completely dissolved, and he was ready to leave the mortal world. Yeah, so this is, again, this is for, I had mentioned earlier that, you know, for the men may have this problem more than the women, but this is, different people can deal with it in different ways. But that is something, you know, the desires, any kind of desires, strong desires like that, yeah, we have to cut them off. Okay, so, all right. Yeah, also realize that, let's see, right, in, basically in the, what Buddha says, right, the fourfold stage of mindfulness, right, regard the mind as impermanent, regard the sensations or feelings as suffering, regard all phenomena as empty or true self-nature, and regard the body in all forms as impure, right? So if that, you know, in this case, you know, you can say that these last three apply in this situation here. And then also in this Purity and Stillness Classic, right, Lao Tzu's thing, it says, the human essence prefers purity, but the mind disturbs it. The human mind prefers stillness, but desires mislead it. If one constantly expels desires, the mind will naturally become still. If one constantly clears the mind, the essence will naturally become pure. Naturally, the 6 desires will not arise, the 3 poisons will vanish. The reason for inability to do the above, is that the mind is not yet clear and desires are not yet expelled. So basically we start we can cut off those desires, to start to purify our mind. Okay. All right. Since, time is kind of short here. All right. Let's see. Okay. Okay. So what Holy Teacher says, if heaven gives us a trial, it is because we are not doing well. We should thank heaven for giving us the opportunity to temper ourselves. When our parents have a strong tone of voice, we should be grateful because our parents want to make us a better person. In a company, if the boss is very dissatisfied and picky with us, we should not be discouraged. We should thank him because it is pushing us to do better and to temper our heart. Remember, always harbor a heart of gratitude when dealing with all matters. Be tolerant and cherish every moment around us. Although good things need much tempering, things will have greater usage and shine only after tempering or refinement. Okay. When we are suffering or encounter hardship, we have to treat our heart as an ordinary heart, and then we will not feel the bitterness. When we encounter setbacks and are facing an unwholesome mindset, we must first self-reflect and introspect, and taking a step back to contemplate. When encountering difficulties and hardships, do not be anxious and panic. Everyone has a blind spot. Life is just a series of continuous choices. Once we have thought it through clearly and set our goal, then we can live up to our mission when we set out. Okay. All right. So if, Manjushri Bodhisattva said, right, the greater the vow, the more the trials. After making the vows, it is only through trials that one achieves. Without the tests and trials, how can one know if the vow is true or not? Only after being tested does one know if the vow is true. So, you can say that forbearance, I mean, it can apply to the vows, right, to see if we are willing or able to continue to fulfill our vows despite the hardships or whatever. But forbearance, of course, applies to everything. And Mencius says, when heaven is about to confer a great responsibility on any man, it will exercise his mind with suffering, subject his muscles and bones to hard work, expose his body to hunger, put him in poverty, and place obstacles in his path so as to stimulate his mind, strengthen his nature, and improve anywhere that he is deficient, right? So again, these trials, these tests of forbearance, really, that's what will separate, the Buddhas from sentient beings, okay? If we want to become Buddhas, then we have to be able to pass these tests of forbearance, okay? Now, if Jesus did not fast in the wilderness for 40 days and nights and encounter all kinds of trials and tempering, then how could he resist the temptations of the physical body, sentimental feelings, wealth, power, and glory of prosperity? How could he shoulder the responsibility of Tao propagation? If the Buddha did not go through the 6 years of ascetic life, of cultivation in the mountains, how could he endure this test of Mara under the Bodhi tree? The sentiment of loved ones, wealth, land of the country, beauty, violence, etc. How could he be able to subdue the unorthodox teachings and avoid the persecution of Devadatta, which that was his cousin who at one point tried to kill him, actually. So forbearance is to temper one's determination and concentration, such as the ability to distinguish the deception of the six senses, to overcome habitual impulses, to break through the obstacles of one's perception, to resist external temptation, to reduce sentiments for loved ones, etc. All need to be tempered. Mencius says, so if we don't go through this kind of training, if you will, or tempering, right? Being tempered. Then, how can we strengthen that Tao heart, right? How can we enhance our wisdom? Moreover, how can we accomplish Tao affairs, right? Okay. All right. In a word, heaven's final evaluation of merits and achievements is not based on the superiority or inferiority of external forms, but by the 5 criteria: moral integrity or virtue, precepts, mindset, the fulfillment of vows, and forbearance. Right? The evaluation of these 5 criteria determines the rise and fall in the peerage or the rank in heaven. Okay, so precepts, they straighten the body and mind. The mindset raises mindfulness, having proper thoughts. Fulfillment of vows accumulates merits and virtue. Forbearance tempers the heart and mind. Virtue manifests the true heavenly nature. Of these 5 criteria, you can say that virtues or moral integrity, right, that's regarded as the first foundation for cultivation. Precepts, they set kind of a moral standard that everyone can practice. Okay. Mindset is the basically the center or the core, because everything basically is in that our mind, our thoughts, our attitude. Okay. Fulfillment of vows is the driving force or motivation to achieve the goal, right, of cultivation, and forbearance is the ultimate foundation. Okay, so we can start to cultivate Tao from the 4 courses, which is kind of, you can say, a subset, well, except for propriety. Okay, so you have, moral character, the virtues, merits, forbearance, and propriety. Okay, so we definitely need to work on these as well. We should give our best in everything that we do. We should not seek merits, but try to avoid mistakes. So usually, so don't, again, we don't want to become attached to the idea of gaining merits, right? Gaining, again. So, but make sure that we don't make any mistakes, right? Because if we don't we're not doing getting merits, then we're making mistakes and getting demerits or bad karma or sins, etc. So, we should be, okay. So in this way, we're not attached to the external forms of merits and fame, right? We should be grounded, not be greedy and arrogant. To achieve the perfection of virtue, discipline, mindset, the fulfillment of vows, and forbearance, we should self-reflect when we are still and ferry others when we are in motion, right? So that's kind of the saying when we are still, meaning that, we cultivate ourselves, and when we are in motion, then we are trying to ferry others. Okay, so, all right. Okay, so that's it. If I had said anything wrong or not satisfactorily, I asked Buddhas for their forgiveness and asked Transforming Masters and lecturers for their corrections. Thank you. Any questions? Okay, sorry, went over time again.
Just one comment.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember old days. This is Mark Lin. Old days, I was afraid to make a vow. Because one time I was from New Jersey, went to New York. A lot of people asked me to make a vow for the temple host or vice temple host. And I was afraid to make a vow because I thought I couldn't be there every week. So I couldn't make a vow. But later on, after those years, I find out because sometimes we didn't explain to people in details. Sometimes we cannot be, like for example, like in USA or other countries. Yes, a lot of temples, we can make what the temple host vow if we are vegetarian. Or we can make vice temple host if we are not vegetarian. We may not be able to be there. We can do a little financial support or other support. We can make their vow too. So I always encourage people to make a vow now. So don't be afraid to make those vows. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Transmitter. The vows, right. We tend to, I guess you can say we tend to put the cart before the horse. Okay. That's a English saying that, in other words, we kind of try to think too far ahead and say, I can't achieve this or I can't do this. But, we take it step at a time. So, but as long as we are willing, right, that's the key, is the willingness and the determination, the resolve to want to continue trying to achieve the goal, of the vow, then that's all that matters, right? So we shouldn't be too afraid of, especially like in the Dharma class when we take the first 2 vows are very simple. Okay, they're not. There's no specific requirements that we have to do so much or whatever. But still you have people saying, they're not sure that they can do this. Once we have a doubt, we have that question. It's question mark. Can I do this or not? That's going to be a big obstacle that will prevent us from achieving. And so we have to clear up, these doubts in our mind as well. And just go for it, basically. And, as long as, again, faith, if we have that faith, then we should not have those questions come up. Okay. So, that's, then you might say that, having the doubts or the questions, is a reflection of our faith, that we don't have enough faith. Okay. So, again, so if we, have strengthened our faith, then we should be able to make those vows.